husband cheated on me, and I was devastated. I was angry. I cut, I crashed, I attacked, I stabbed, I plotted. I did a lot of stuff.
I'm a firm believer that charity begins at home and then it spreads. And then I forgot that part. And so I contributed to the distance in our relationship.
I'm just saying, though, I like for you to look a little more like I like for you to look.
I started realizing how faulty I was. The fact that I've been a contentious wife the entire time I've been married to him. I'm sitting up here running around being the face of gospel, encouraging everybody, being more of a really good Christian in theory.
Like, I don't need you for too much of this because I run stuff. I got the baby, so I got love. I don't need the other kind of love. I'm fine, at least for a little while. You know what I mean? Because I got her. You know what I mean? And so he was just,
with you next month.
Y'all, what if the most stable family in gospel just got shattered by one late night live stream and a claim so explosive it rewrites everything? Minutes ago, Tina Campbell went live. No filters, no script, just tears, pauses, and a statement that froze the timeline. She said she couldn't stay quiet anymore. She said the truth had a cost. And then she showed what she called evidence. But here's where it turns. Instead of another accusation, she dropped a claim that cuts through the core, a paternity twist tied to Teddy Campbell and the youngest child in Erica Campbell's household, framed as a DNA bombshell. Now, the conversation isn't just about cheating, it's about identity, trust, and who knew what and when. I held this in to protect 2 homes, she said, and it broke mine. Then comes the second shock. The name at the center of the fallout, Warryn Campbell, is suddenly everywhere. Reports say he's devastated. Others say he's reviewing everything. No confirmation, just silence, and a vacuum filling with speculation. If you track this back, the pattern gets darker. Whispers, distance, moments that didn't add up. Public unity. Private fractures. A story that looked clean until it didn't. And now it's escalating. Clips are spreading. Sides are forming. Proof is being debated in real time. Every second without a response makes the claims louder. So here's the question no one can dodge.
In a relationship with where we are now, I think I just want to make sure that we're even intentional, even when we're working, just to kind of, just check.
It didn't start with a confirmation. It started with a pause that felt too long, and a sentence that didn't belong in a normal explanation. I can't stay quiet anymore. That's how Tina Campbell opened the live. No build-up. No soft entry. Just a statement that immediately signaled something was about to shift. Within seconds, the atmosphere changed. Because this wasn't a performance. It wasn't a casual update. It felt deliberate, measured, but heavy, like someone preparing to say something they already knew would break more than it fixed. The context was already tense. There had been weeks of claims, responses, and shifting narratives involving Teddy Campbell and Erica Campbell. The story had already crossed the line from private to public. But this was different. Because instead of repeating what had already been said, she introduced something new. Something specific. But here's where it turns. Instead of leading with accusation, she led with justification. She explained why she hadn't spoken sooner. Why she held back. Why she allowed a version of events to circulate without interruption. According to her, it wasn't fear. It was protection. 2 households. Multiple relationships. A structure that, in her words, couldn't survive exposure. And then she said the line that reframed everything. Silence became a lie. That's when the focus shifted from what happened to what had been hidden. Because once silence is described as intentional, everything that follows becomes part of a larger pattern. And that pattern is where the core of the drama sits. She didn't present it as a moment. She presented it as something ongoing. Something she had been observing, tracking, questioning, without speaking. That's what made the next part heavier.
Doing the check-ins about 2008 because we didn't feel connected. If you don't connect, then...
Because when she finally moved into the claim itself, it wasn't framed as speculation. It was framed as a conclusion she had reached over time. A conclusion she said she could support. And that's where the emotional tone changed. Her voice slowed. Her delivery tightened. And she referenced something she described as evidence. Not in detail. Not fully explained. But enough to suggest that what she was about to say wasn't just based on suspicion. That it had been verified, at least from her perspective. That's when the conversation crossed into its most volatile space. Because once evidence is introduced, the stakes change. It's no longer just a story. It becomes a claim that demands response. And response is exactly what hasn't happened yet. But before that silence could settle, another layer was added. Because this wasn't just about her.
In 2013, where infidelity rocked the core of the family. It's all on you, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean...
It extended outward. Into another household. Another relationship. Another name that hadn't been central before, but now couldn't be ignored. Warryn Campbell. Not as a bystander, but as someone directly impacted by what was being alleged. And that's where the second shift happened. Because now the situation wasn't contained. It expanded, from one relationship breaking down to multiple relationships intersecting under pressure. And once that expansion happens, the narrative becomes harder to control. Because more people are affected, more perspectives exist, more silence becomes noticeable. Looking back, she suggested this didn't appear suddenly, that there were signs, moments that didn't align, changes in behavior, gaps in explanation, things that at the time could be dismissed, but later started to connect. That's the nature of patterns. They're only visible once you step back. And according to her, that's exactly what she did. She stepped back. She watched. And eventually, she decided the pattern was real. But that decision didn't resolve anything. It escalated everything. Because now the story isn't just being told. It's being tested. Against silence. Against reaction. Against what comes next. And that leads to the question that's starting to surface beneath all of this. If what she's presenting is based on something she believes is verified, then what happens when the people involved respond? And if they don't, what does that silence actually mean?
As a kid, I filtered everything through it. Yeah. Everything. So when loneliness showed up in my marriage, I went back to the old Ted.
Wow.
That's exactly how it happened. So you have to...
The moment she referenced evidence, the story crossed a line it couldn't come back from. Because once that word enters the conversation, everything changes. Not just what is being said, but how it is received. Within minutes, clips of Tina Campbell's live started circulating. Short segments. Isolated lines. A single claim repeated over and over until it began to feel larger than the context it came from. The narrative didn't evolve slowly. It escalated instantly. People weren't asking if something happened. They were asking how long it had been happening. That's the difference. But here's where it turns again. Because instead of reinforcing her claim with full clarity, she kept parts of it controlled, measured, selective. She referenced documentation, but didn't fully display it. She described verification, but didn't break it down. And that gap? That's where the tension built. Because partial information doesn't calm a situation. It amplifies it. Now the focus shifted to what wasn't shown, what wasn't explained.
Found out about it when we were taping the show. When we were taping the reality show called Mary, if some of y'all don't know. We went through a season of her finding out everything that I had done.
The person who it was, she used to work for me. And so that broke my heart. She was like a godmother to my children. She had access to my home to come get my kids. And I said, "Are you having an affair with her?" And he said, "No." I said, "Call her." Why are we doing this? I was like, "Call her." And so he did. And
what might still be hidden. And that's where the core drama deepened. Because the allegation itself wasn't just about betrayal. It was about identity. About a truth that, if accurate, doesn't just affect relationships. It reshapes them. And once that possibility exists, the emotional weight multiplies. That's when she paused again. Not for effect, but as if the weight of what she had already said needed space. "I didn't want to destroy 2 homes," she stated. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Because the implication was already clear. This wasn't a recent discovery. This was something she claimed to have carried for a long time. And that introduces the second twist. Time. Because if this is something that existed over an extended period, then it changes how every previous moment is interpreted. Every appearance, every interaction, every public display of unity, it all becomes subject to reevaluation. And that's exactly what started happening. People began looking backward, not forward, trying to identify where things first shifted, trying to connect moments that once seemed unrelated. And as that process unfolded, the attention moved again, this time more intensely toward Warryn Campbell. Not just as someone affected, but as someone potentially central to the impact of the claim. Because if the allegation holds any weight, then the consequences don't stop at one relationship. They extend outward, into another marriage, another structure.
And he was like, "Tina wants to know," and da-da-da-da-da. And I said, "Are you sleeping with my husband?" And she hung up the phone, so I had my answer. So it broke my heart. I destroyed 3 cars. I cut up and crashed up and tried to stab and plotted murders and all kind of crazy stuff because I was angry.
Since then, I found out about more. And I don't want to hold on to somebody who I cannot trust. You see, I have been trying since the very beginning. The situation gets a little worse, and then I try to forgive, and it gets a little worse, and I try to forgive. You gonna keep adding people? You gonna keep adding people? You gonna keep adding people? I thought we had a good life just like everybody else watching. I was 190% committed to that man. And this is what you did every time I was gone?
Another reality that, until now, appeared stable. That's where the situation became heavier. Because now the silence surrounding him carries its own meaning. No direct statement. No detailed response. Just absence. And in a situation like this, absence isn't neutral. It's interpreted, repeatedly. Meanwhile, the broader narrative continued to fracture. Some focused on her credibility, others focused on his past, others questioned the timing. Because timing, in situations like this, is never ignored. Why now? Why this moment? Why after everything else had already been said? Those questions don't slow the story down. They intensify it. And that's what happened. The conversation didn't stabilize.
What if I kill you first? He said. He said.
No. That's what you said. You looked at me. You was mad because she was. She looked at me one time. She's like, "Don't you think you deserve to die?" And I was like,
"Wow."
I said, "Yeah."
Ooh.
I said, "Yeah." I said, "The wages of sin is death." I said, if you kill me, I'm going to be with the Lord.
Because I repented.
But if you don't, I'm gonna make this up to you.
It layered. More theories, more assumptions, more interpretations building on top of each other. Until the original claim wasn't just one part of the story anymore. It became the center of it. And once something becomes the center, everything else starts orbiting around it. That's where things stand now. Not confirmed, not resolved, but magnified. And magnification without clarity leads to one outcome: pressure. Because the longer this continues, without a full response from every side, the more permanent these interpretations become. And that leads to a question that's harder to ignore with each passing moment. If this claim is as serious as it sounds, then what happens when it's either proven or completely dismantled? And which outcome would actually cause more damage?
He said, if you don't, I'm going to get you back.
Yeah, I'll make this up to you.
He said,
I broke it.
If you divorce me, I'm going to pursue you till I get you back.
I did tell her.
And I was like, I didn't know.
She knew I
know
meant
exactly where we were in our house when that man said that. And I was like, he means it. He do to get me back. He did everything he said he was going to do. He did everything that he said he was going to do. So in the spirit, he ran.
The silence didn't calm anything. It sharpened it. Because in a situation already built on claims, timing, and fragments, the absence of a direct response doesn't reduce pressure. It concentrates it. After the live ended, the conversation didn't slow down. It multiplied. Clips were cut, captions were rewritten, and the same few lines from Tina Campbell's statement began to circulate as if they were standalone facts. No context and full explanation, just repetition. And repetition is where narratives solidify. But here's where it shifts again. Because as the claim reached wider audiences, something else started happening. People stopped reacting emotionally and started analyzing, breaking down tone, comparing timelines, revisiting old moments that once seemed insignificant. Because once a story introduces the possibility of something hidden, everything in the past becomes potential evidence. That's how the focus moved from what was said to what could be inferred. And that's where the core drama deepened. Because now the situation wasn't just about whether something happened. It was about how long it might have been happening and who might have known. That's when the second twist gained momentum. The idea that this wasn't an isolated situation, that it wasn't limited to one relationship, that multiple dynamics could have been overlapping at the same time. And once that idea enters the conversation, the structure changes. Because now the story isn't linear. It's interconnected. And at the center of that intersection, once again, is Warryn Campbell. Not because he has spoken, but because he hasn't. His silence has become part of the narrative. Interpreted as restraint by some, questioned as avoidance by others. Either way, it adds weight. Because in situations this public, silence rarely goes unnoticed. It gets filled with speculation, with assumptions, with conclusions that may or may not hold. Looking back, the pattern being discussed now didn't emerge overnight. It was constructed piece by piece through hindsight. Moments that once seemed routine now appear significant. Interactions that felt ordinary now feel loaded. That's how perception works when new information is introduced. It rewrites the past. And that rewriting is what's escalating the situation further. Because the more people revisit what came before, the more they find connections that weren't obvious at the time. And those connections don't resolve anything. They complicate everything. Meanwhile, the balance between the narratives remains uneven. One side has presented a detailed claim. The others have not responded with the same level of specificity. And that imbalance is what's driving the escalation. Because without a direct counter, the existing claim continues to expand unchecked. Not because it's confirmed, but because it's uncontested in detail. That's the stage the situation has reached, where absence becomes influence, where silence becomes a factor, where every hour without clarification adds another layer to the narrative. And in that environment, the story stops being about what is true. It becomes about what feels most consistent, what fits the pattern people believe they're seeing, which leads to the final question that now sits at the center of all of this. If the full story hasn't been told yet, Then, is what we're seeing now the truth finally surfacing? Or just the first version of something even more complicated waiting to unfold? And just like that, the story isn't ending. It's detonating. Because what started as one late-night live stream has now turned into a full-blown collapse of trust, timelines, and everything people thought they knew about this circle. Tina Campbell put the claim on the table. Teddy Campbell is already tied to a history that complicates every detail. Erica Campbell hasn't responded in full. And Warryn Campbell? Silence. But silence in a situation like this isn't quiet. It's loud. Because every second without a clear answer gives the claim more space to grow, more room to spread, and more power to reshape the narrative. And here's the dangerous part. This is no longer about proof. This is about perception. Because once the internet locks onto a version of events, it doesn't wait for confirmation. It builds conclusions in real time. It fills gaps. It connects dots that may or may not belong together. And now, there are too many dots. Too many unanswered questions. Too many versions of the same story colliding at once. So this becomes bigger than just a relationship. This becomes a test of who controls the narrative and who loses everything when it slips out of their hands. Because if even part of this is true, the damage isn't temporary. It's permanent. Reputations shift. Trust collapses. Histories get rewritten. And if it's not, then something just as serious is happening. So ask yourself, are we watching the truth finally come out? Or the beginning of a story that's about to get even darker?